expedition cruising is typically about someone who really wants to learn about a destination, who really wants to explore a destination. And I think, that's for many that's for many people one of the reasons they actually travel. So, the term expedition gets used, and sometimes people feel that that term expedition means that they need to be trained, they need to be hiking up mountains, but it's not like that. A lot of our expeditions go to some incredible places, and we offer all levels of opportunities, of fitness levels. And so, an expedition really appeals to anyone who wants to learn more about nature, learn more about the world, and really head over to some remote and incredible destinations around the world. And it's not always, I don't always want to kind of categorize people into a box. My genuine feeling is that most people would like to see as much of the world as possible. But I think where there's sometimes a misconception is that they believe because it's an expedition, they need to be physically fit, able, and ready to walk up a mountain. And that's really not the case at all. Some of the best experiences in Antarctica, you literally get off the Zodiac, walk 10, 20 meters, and the wildlife is everywhere around you. So to summarize it, I'd say really anyone who wants to learn more about this incredible place and planet that we live on. So expedition itineraries it's really a huge team effort at the shoreside. It's quite a complicated process, and to be honest, that's probably true for all itinerary planning in the industry. Everyone from marketing, sales to revenue management is really involved in making sure that the itineraries we develop are good, and obviously itineraries that we can sell. But typically speaking, on expedition side, we also do leverage a lot of knowledge from the expedition team. So that's both shoreside expedition teams who work at the shoreside office, but both our shipboard expedition teams. So, we have expedition leaders on board the vessel who've spent 20, 30 years leading expeditions around the world, and they really can help us. They give feedback. A great example, we've been moving across the South Pacific with Seabourn Pursuit. And one of our expedition leaders, Dom, was like, we should go to a place in Indonesia called Sulawesi Bay. We were like, well, okay, what's there? And he said, well, it's an opportunity to see whale sharks. I said, well, Dom, I've heard that in a lot of places around the world where you can go see whale sharks, and it's not that easy once you get there. But we said, great, we'll take your advice, we'll add it to the itinerary. And we added it to the itinerary. And last year, every single guest on board the ship snorkeled with 5 whale sharks at Sulawesi Bay for multiple hours. And it was probably one of our top 2 wildlife encounters for the entire year. So the expedition leaders on board do also have a great influence on the itinerary. Also, when we're more in, let's say, remote destinations, Antarctica, high Arctic, they are the ones in conjunction with the captain who are actually deciding where we go, what we do. They're the ones who have the knowledge based on wind direction, ice conditions, whether we can actually get ashore somewhere, and what that experience ultimately is going to be like. And many of those destinations also seasonal and very short season. So, the experience of coming ashore at Nico Harbor in November might be very different to what it is in February. So we leverage their knowledge, their shipboard knowledge, their destination experience to really massage itineraries. Because again, in many of these remote destinations, we don't actually have a set itinerary. We have the Seabourn Antarctic experience, we have the Seabourn Arctic experience, or the Seabourn Kimberley experience. And through that, we give the teams on board, the expedition leader and the captains, that flexibility to be able to really massage the itinerary based on what they feel is going to deliver the best possible product in that destination. So our expedition leaders are really crucial to delivering the product. When we're really in remote destinations with no shoreside or third-party operators, the expedition leader works to plan those itineraries. We have a team of about 21 expedition staff on board, and those teams are what really are delivering that experience in the various destinations we go. We might be going on a Zodiac tour, we might decide we're going to head in a certain direction. One of the expedition staff might see in the distance through binoculars bubble net feeding, and that's something quite special to see. And on the drop of a hat, we might change our plans completely and move in a completely different direction. We have that on the ship as well. When guests join an expedition product, we always say to them, flexibility is really the key to an expedition, because every evening we give a recap and briefing on board the ship, and that gives the guests an indication of where we're going to go, what we're going to do the following day. But it's not uncommon for the expedition leader to wake you up at 7 o'clock the next morning and say, actually, we're nowhere near that destination. The ship encountered heavy ice in the middle of the night. We're moving into a different destination. And then it's the expedition leader's knowledge and experience of the area that allows us to offer a new experience. And sometimes plan B can actually be better than plan A. It's fantastic to see how that product evolves almost on the drop of a hat. I think something that many guests find as a surprise is the level of engagement that happens on an expedition vessel. I always describe it as like a team building experience, because if you go on a cruise, 20 guests go on one tour, 20 guests go on another tour, 20 guests go on another tour, and they all have a different experience. It might be a great experience, but it's a different experience. And I think for many of our guests, it's a common experience on board the vessel that bonds them together. You know, if we're coming ashore at Brown Bluff, all our guests come ashore, all our guests walk on the shoreside, all of our guests see 60,000 Adelie penguins. And so that evening when we're back on board the ship at recap and briefing, there's a buzz in the room. The guests are all excited, they're talkers. They can turn to any guest on the ship and they know that that guest has had the same experience, they've had the same emotional connection with what they've done that day. And so what's incredible to see on an expedition ship is how within 24 to 48 hours, you see the guests starting to bond around common shared experiences. And some of those experiences are bucket list experiences. And I think another thing that I guess find really surprising is how actively engaging the expedition team is on board. The expedition team are with them during Seabourn conversations, lectures, recaps, briefings, fireside chats, cocktail parties, hosting dinners, and then of course they're in the Zodiacs, driving them, taking them ashore, helping them ashore. And there is a lot of also contact between the guests and the expedition team. And so through that contact, through that shared experiences, everyone seems to bond, and there's a much stronger bond that is built on an expedition ship amongst guests based on just these shared experiences. I think there's a place in the Southern Ocean called South Georgia, and it sits just inside the Antarctic Convergence, but just outside of the island. Doesn't freeze over, and so you find a species of penguins there called king penguins that you don't get down in Antarctica, and they breed in South Georgia because they have a very odd breeding cycle, and as a result of that they need access to open water 365 days a year. But I think one of the most incredible sights that I've had is coming ashore at a place called Salisbury Plain in South Georgia at sunrise. You've got a beautiful glacier in the back. You come ashore and you walk about 100 meters over this little incline, and at the back is about 250,000 pairs of king penguins in this massive rookery, and it is without a doubt probably one of the greatest wildlife encounters anywhere on the planet. We've got guests coming back from that experience in tears. It's that overwhelming. And I think for me, if I could ever time travel to a place for just like an hour, that's where you'd find me on Salisbury Plain in South Georgia. This may seem like an odd one, but I haven't managed to get to New Zealand. New Zealand is one of the places I'd still love to explore. A lot of expedition staff in the industry are from New Zealand, and I've seen a huge amount of photographs and some incredible places. So New Zealand is one of the few places I haven't been, and I'd still love to have that opportunity to visit. So on Seabourn Expeditions, if you're coming and joining us for a polar itinerary, you are receiving a Helly Hansen bespoke parka, which is a two-piece parka puff jacket. You're also getting a waterproof backpack as well as an aluminium kind of drinking flask. So we do provide quite a bit of gear for our guests. We also on board have boots, we have walking sticks. So when a guest is joining us in Antarctica, beyond kind of waterproof pants and let's say accessories and some thermal gear, they don't need to bring too much. We do provide quite a bit of the equipment for the guests. Personally, it depends where we're going in the world. I think things like a camera, a pair of binoculars, those are always items that you want to bring with. It's always items I want to bring with. You know, on the expedition ships, we do provide a pair of Swarovski binoculars for every single suite, so a guest has access to Swarovski binoculars on board the vessels. That's another kind of luxury amenity that we provide for the guests as part of the expedition experience, because it's really critical. You know, there's some areas in the world where we can only take you so far, and to bring things to life, a pair of binoculars is a world of difference. So for me, a camera, a pair of binoculars, if we're in the tropics, snorkeling equipment, and probably if we're in Antarctica, a really good parka to keep you warm.